education in Pakistan, microscopes, and the missing telescope. On the journey from my village in Dera Ismail Khan to Islamabad, I often passed through Mian Wali. Along the roadside stood the familiar billboards of private schools and colleges. Their advertisements followed a remarkably predictable pattern. Boys and girls smiled confidently while peering into microscopes. Gleaming laboratories occupied the centre of the image. Scientific instruments appeared everywhere, serving as visual proof of educational excellence, modernity, and progress. Such advertisements are common throughout Pakistan. Looking at them over the years, a simple question occurred to me. Why microscopes? Why not telescopes? I cannot recall seeing a single school advertisement showing students gazing into the night sky through a telescope. Yet both instruments are among the great symbols of science. Both extend the limits of human perception. One reveals hidden worlds within a drop of water. The other reveals worlds scattered across the heavens. One opens a universe beneath our feet. The other opens a universe above our heads. The difference is not merely technical, it is philosophical. A microscope invites us to examine life in its smallest forms. A telescope invites us to contemplate existence on its largest scale. Looking through a telescope is not simply an act of observation, it is an invitation to wonder. It encourages questions that have accompanied humanity for thousands of years. What are the stars? How large is the universe? Where did it come from? What is humanity's place within it? Most importantly, it reminds us of our own smallness. Anyone who has looked through a telescope at Saturn's rings or the moons of Jupiter experiences a peculiar shift in perspective. Daily concerns suddenly appear less important. Human beings become inhabitants of a vast and ancient cosmos rather than merely citizens of a particular town, province, or nation. This state of mind played a central role in the birth of modern science. Copernicus began his revolution not by looking down, but by looking up. He dared to suspect that the Earth moved. Galileo turned a telescope towards the heavens and discovered mountains on the moon and moons orbiting Jupiter. These observations shattered the inherited picture of the cosmos. Centuries later, giant observatories and space telescopes continue the same tradition. Today, the James Webb Space Telescope peers so deeply into space that it effectively looks backward in time, revealing galaxies that formed near the beginning of the universe. Such inquiries are not driven by immediate practical concerns. They emerge from curiosity itself. A telescope, therefore, symbolizes something more than an instrument. It symbolizes a willingness to ask questions whose answers may have no obvious economic value. It represents a type of intellectual activity that is comfortable with abstraction, wonder, and uncertainty. Yet in Pakistan, the telescope occupies only a marginal place in public imagination. The microscope, by contrast, appears everywhere. Why? The answer has little to do with science and much to do with society. In Pakistan, science is often valued less as a method for understanding reality than as a pathway towards respected professions. Biology leads to medicine. Physics, chemistry, and mathematics lead to engineering. Parents, students, and schools naturally focus on these destinations because they promise financial security, social prestige, and professional status. There is nothing irrational about this. In a developing country, economic concerns are real. Families make sacrifices so their children can enjoy opportunities unavailable to previous generations. Education becomes one of the few reliable means of social mobility. But this practical orientation has consequences. The microscope on the billboard is not merely a scientific instrument, it functions as a cultural symbol. It tells parents that their child is moving towards medicine. It suggests competence, success, and a respectable future. The image communicates aspiration more than curiosity. To many viewers, the microscope is associated less with scientific inquiry than with becoming a doctor. If admission to prestigious professions required 2 years of teaching monkeys to sing folk songs instead of studying biology, many students would willingly spend those years teaching monkeys to sing. The activity itself would matter little. The goal would remain the same. That may sound absurd, but the principle is familiar. People endure extraordinary hardships when pursuing economic opportunity. Some spend years preparing for examinations. Others travel thousands of miles in search of better prospects. When the reward is sufficiently attractive, the task becomes secondary to the outcome. The goal remains employment, income, status, and security. This helps explain why microscopes dominate educational advertising, while telescopes are almost entirely absent. One points towards a profession. The other points towards a question. One promises a career, the other promises wonder. Modern societies require both. They need doctors, engineers, scientists, and professionals of every kind. Yet they also need people who ask questions that appear impractical. Humanity's greatest intellectual advances have often emerged from curiosity that initially seemed useless. No one built the first telescopes to improve examination scores. No one developed modern astronomy because it guaranteed employment. The desire came first. The applications followed later. The issue extends beyond science. The same mentality shapes attitudes towards the humanities. Philosophy, history, literature, and political thought are frequently regarded as secondary subjects. They are often seen as options for students who could not enter more prestigious fields. Philosophy becomes interesting only when it helps with a competitive examination. History is reduced to memorizing dates rather than understanding how civilizations rise, flourish, and decline. Yet these disciplines address some of the deepest questions human beings have ever asked. What is justice? What is truth? Why do societies collapse? How does power operate? What gives meaning to human life? These questions are no less important than questions in physics or biology. Indeed, they are often more directly connected to the problems that societies actually face. Ask a well-educated Pakistani what year it is, and the answer will come immediately. 2026. Ask why the year is 2026. Ask which historical event gives meaning to that number. Ask why much of the world counts time according to a calendar rooted in the life of a man born in Roman Palestine 2,000 years ago. Many people will struggle to answer. The date is known. Its historical significance is not. This reflects a broader educational tendency. Knowledge is often valued for its utility rather than its meaning. Subjects rise and fall according to the careers they promise rather than the ideas they contain. As a result, education increasingly resembles training. Training is valuable. Every society requires skilled professionals. But education, in its highest sense, is something larger. It expands the imagination. It enlarges the boundaries of thought. It teaches people to ask questions that have no predetermined answer. A society that values only training may produce competent professionals, but it will struggle to produce original thinkers. It may produce engineers, but not Copernicuses. Doctors, but not Galileos. Administrators, but not philosophers. The missing telescope on our billboards is therefore more than a missing instrument. It is a symbol. It symbolizes an educational culture that increasingly asks what knowledge can do for a career rather than what knowledge can do for the mind. It reflects a society more comfortable with practical outcomes than with intellectual wonder. Yet the two need not be enemies. The microscope and the telescope belong together. One teaches us to examine the hidden details of reality. The other teaches us to contemplate reality as a whole. One trains observation. The other cultivates perspective. One reveals complexity. The other reveals scale. A complete education requires both. For a society that looks only downward, risks becoming intellectually confined within immediate concerns. A society that also looks upward acquires imagination, humility, and a sense of its place within a larger universe. The microscope teaches us to observe. The telescope teaches us to wonder. And no civilization can remain intellectually alive for long if it forgets how to do the second.